we want to get right into the relevant sports going on. And Alex is going to start us off tonight with the NBA like he always does. He's got some hot fire to spit for us. Right, Alex?
That is true. So before we kind of get into it, two things. Congratulations to the women's Stanford team. They won the women's tournament just like an hour and a half ago, beating the 3-seed Arizona women's team. It was a close game. I think it was 54-53. Arizona had a shot at the end. It was a terrible shot. It was, I mean, if you like watch it was just, they poorly executed the last play of the game. But congratulations to Stanford. And then tomorrow night, Monday night, we've got Baylor and Gonzaga playing after Gonzaga hit a buzzer beater.
Yeah, holy
to
shit.
beat UCLA last night.
There's no way in hell that they lose. There's no way in hell.
No way.
How did we forget to mention this in the beginning? Yeah. Holy fuck.
So, yeah, that was insane as well. Fantasy-wise, we're still kind of going on right now. Like, the games are still going. But, I update us as always. Yours truly is going to win again, obviously. I don't really know why that's even the debate. Tyler is destroying this week, so he's going to get a win. James is also going to get a win. And Trayden going to possibly squeak out a win over your fiance.
Yes.
Love that. So Trayden's got some trash talking at home, so that's pretty good. And then one last thing before we get into like actual NBA stuff. Guys, Space Jam 2 trailer dropped. Did you watch it?
No.
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Okay, well, I don't know why I brought it up because none of these fuckers watched it. So never mind. We'll talk about it later.
Was it cool?
It was pretty cool, and it's got just like Space Jam 1. It's got cameos from current players in both the NBA and the WNBA. So give that a check out. It probably won't be as good as the first one, but
is the sequel ever better than the original though?
There's very few exceptions.
That could be a whole segment's worth.
Yeah, I feel like that
information.
Eric, you got it, man.
Stretch, yeah.
That feels like a whole different thing. Okay, let's get into current NBA stuff that's going on. I feel like we talk about him a lot, but Joel Embiid is back for the Philadelphia 76ers. He missed about 3 to 4 weeks with a bone bruise in his knee. I've taken 2 anatomy classes, so I'm pretty much a doctor. But I'm 90% sure that bone bruises are still hurt after like 3 or 4 weeks. So, Eric, what do you think? What can we expect from Joel Embiid coming back, with probably lasting pain and injury, kind of woes in that knee?
Yeah, you are actually right. Bone bruises do hurt a lot, and they do kind of linger too. But, it seems to be common sense, but I feel like he's going to start out slow. Normally, they're going to throw him on a little bit of minute restrictions. I don't know how big Doc Rivers is with that from past experience, if he listens to the sports scientists when they talk about minute restrictions, but nonetheless, he will be on some minute restrictions. But he's going to be a huge help for them, of course. And looking at his stats, 30 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game. But what I'm thinking is he's probably going to have more assists because he's going to be a little winded getting his game back. And I feel like he's going to post up and they're going to try to do ISO stuff with him. And if he gets all tired, he's just going to pass it back to somebody, maybe to Tobias Harris or one of their shooters. But it's really good timing for them. They actually, withheld and stood up against a lot of teams during the time he's been gone. They're still in a good spot. And, these upcoming games, they got Celtics, Pelicans, Thunder, Mavs, and Brooklyn Nets. So they're going to need him for that stretch. There's about 22 games left in the season. So I think he's coming back just enough time to dial it back in for them.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of speaking on the, conditioning part, that's something Joel Embiid has been criticized for in the past. I mean, he's a big boy, he's 7 feet tall, 280 probably. So working his way back in, it's going to take some time. And you're right, they held up without him. He was the front runner for the MVP when he went down, and they've held up without him. It does kind of help they play in the East, and there's really only 3 teams, I feel like, that have a legitimate shot. It's those top 3 teams, the Bucks, the Nets, and Joel Embiid's 76ers. But you're right. Tobias Harris has been amazing with Joel gone. Their defense should get better, and it will be fun to watch him, down the road for the rest of the season here. Moving on.
Real fast.
Yeah, go for it.
So, Bone Bruise is hurt, and you guys had mentioned before that the Sixers are doing well without Embiid. So, do you think that they should have waited to play Embiid until he's fully, 100%, no pain at all, before putting him back out there? Because they're rolling right now.
No. I feel like they're professional sports teams. I would assume that their team doctors are pretty intelligent. And as long as Joel Embiid is telling them the truth and saying, it's a manageable pain, and, they watch him on the court and, he played well in his first game back, then no, I think you play him and get him back into shape for this stretch run. They're going to want the best seeding possible in the East so they can avoid those other two teams as much as they possibly can. So I see your point, but I would assume if he's healthy enough to play, they're going to play him.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to play like the Celtics first round if they kind of slip down, or
it depends on whoever comes out of that play-in tournament.
It's all that.
Yeah, true. But either way, it'd probably be better off for them to just to dial in with him back in the lineup so they're ready. But yeah, I mean, it is a concern. It could be like a little bit of a trial and error thing. See how he is that first game. If it fucks with him, then take him out again.
Is that an injury that you can rush early and it be an issue down the road?
Oh yeah, compensation patterns.
Yeah, it would not surprise me if he played like 50% of the games. One game on, one game off, one game on, one game off down the road.
Yeah, they'll wind him into it.
Yeah, they're gonna. Yeah. That's a good question, James. Okay, moving on. I specifically saw this report and my first thought was Traden. So and then it worked out well because I brought this up and we had a nice discussion about it in our little text group. But there's this report going on that during the All-Star break weekend, LeBron, he picked Steph to be on his All-Star team, and there were conversations that LeBron was trying to convince Steph to come to LA after next season. So Steph can sign an extension this offseason to play up until age 38 with the Warriors. It's a shit ton of money. He'd probably take a little bit less if he did that to, help the Warriors bring in some other, veteran players. But after the Celtics big three and the Miami big three, the NBA has been so star driven. And I know, Traden, you are a Warriors fan, and I know Kylie is a Warriors fan. So what do you think about this LeBron Steph team up? LeBron would be 37, 38 at that point. Steph 34, 35, something like that.
I don't know what I hate more, the idea of them teaming up or the source of the information. ESPN's Brian Windhorst is the one who brought this up on his podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And he has zero credibility, zero evidence that this was even a thing. It's completely out of the air bullshit to make a story. Dude, if you're struggling that much for viewers or listeners, do something else because you're doing it wrong. We do this all the time where we just throw up some random clickbait bullshit. That's all of our lives are surrounded by. This is just another one of those. Does anybody on this podcast honestly think that Steph Curry would even think to go team up with LeBron in LA? Seriously. No. This is like a 0%.
I would give it 15%.
I would say it's maybe 1%. There's a better chance that LeBron goes to Golden State than
I disagree with that 100%.
Then Steph Curry goes to LA.
No, LeBron's trying to. No, okay. Finish your point, and then
let me just interrupt like I always do. I actually could, if that were to ever happen, I could see LeBron going to the Warriors, joining Klay Thompson, Steph.
No way.
And yeah, dude, they were trying to land Giannis this year. It didn't work out. I mean, fill the spot.
LeBron is at the end of his career, and he's going to stay with a historical franchise. He's not going to go to a franchise that isn't historically the best of the best. The Lakers are the best of the best.
With all that said, there's no way that he's going to leave all that money on the table and go to the LA. He is going to stay he's going to stay and die a Warrior. There's no way that the Warriors franchise will let him go away. To answer your question before, what do I think of the team up? This whole league, we said this on our text thing. This league is broken. Like, that's all this league is about is teaming up and doing this whole thing. And here's the thing, like, I actually appreciate the fact that players make it to free agency and get the ability and deserve the ability to choose where they go. I'm actually for that. That said, it has kind of ruined the game in that, like, that's all. If your big three isn't better than the other team's big three, you're not going to win. And that's just not how a sport that I grew up playing is like, where your bottom six can make a huge difference down the stretch. So it just seems like it's just going to be another, Brooklyn Nets. You guys said it on the text. I said this league is going to be broken, and you guys made the point that it already is broken. Well, yeah. So do you want to make it even more? I think it's cool on paper. Like it's cool to hear, these two guys team up. They did at All-Star break, which was pretty interesting. I just think it's not. It just doesn't lend itself to much parity in the league. That's my issue with it.
Yeah. Okay. So the parity in the NBA is long gone. I mean, it's just there's the top heavy teams, and there's realistically, this year maybe 6 teams that could win it, assuming the Lakers get healthy. If not 5 teams that could win the championship realistically. And I mean, as a fan of both of those players, I think it'd be super fun if they played together. They're probably the 2 most important players in the last 2 decades in basketball. And speaking of LeBron going to Golden State, 0% chance that would ever happen. Part of his whole move to LA was because he wanted to get into Hollywood. I mean, he's obviously in this, starring in Space Jam 2. He's been in other movies. He wants to kind of ingrain himself in that Southern California culture. And so I just can't see him doing that.
I agree. I'm talking a 0 versus a 0.1% chance.
I still think
0% chance that Steph goes to LA, and there's a 0.1% chance that LeBron goes to Golden State. That's it. It's not going to happen.
I think it's at least 0.2 after they were down by 61 points to the Raptors last night. I want Steph to finish his career as a Warrior. He was, I've never been a Warriors fan, but being a Kobe fan, seeing what Dirk did in Dallas, like that type of thing is so rare now. Jeter with the Yankees. That in any sport, we just saw Tom Brady after whatever 22 seasons or whatever it was with the Patriots move on. So I hope he stays, but I also kind of want to see him play with LeBron. So I'm kind of torn. Okay, and then go ahead.
No, I said I feel that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting topic, and
I think it'd be cool. Moving on. So 2 veteran players have signed 10-day contracts. Isaiah Thomas and DeMarcus Cousins. We talked about Boogie a while ago, and he's just been out there forever. So Isaiah Thomas is signing with the New Orleans Pelicans, and then Boogie is signing with the Clippers. James, which one of these guys will stick around past those 10 days, or will make a bigger impact on their team?
I think this is the easiest question you've ever asked me, to be honest with you. Traden, real fast. This is just a segue kind of thing. But do you know who Isaiah Thomas is?
Yes.
Is that like a confident yes, or
definitely not a confident? Like, I heard the name before.
Okay, so that's the biggest thing. Isaiah Thomas has not played in the NBA like as a big name since like 2016. He's been kind of in and out doing his thing. Like last played at the Wizards. His last game was February 2020, and that was when he was playing with the Wizards. Isaiah Thomas was an MVP runner in 2016 when he was with the Celtics. He came out of nowhere and put up 28 points per game and like 10. He averaged double-double, and he's like this 5'7" dude, super explosive, does his thing, and he was fun to watch. But then injuries happened, and Isaiah Thomas since then has not been able to bring up that level of play. I honestly think he's just signing with the Pelicans for this 10-day contract because they need depth. They have like 7 guys on injured reserve right now. They're not healthy. The biggest hit to them was Josh Hart, who just went to IR he's going to be gone for a significant amount of time. So I think Isaiah Thomas will stay past that 10-day contract, but once he's going to be buried in the depth chart once Josh Hart gets back. And in the meantime, he's going to come off the bench and put up 5-6 minutes a game, like nothing crazy. Isaiah Thomas is nothing like he was before, and it sucks because he was a cool story. The biggest part about that is that he had a hip injury, and for how small he is, he has to rely on his athleticism. He has to rely on his footwork and his explosiveness. And he can't do that with a bad hip. That's why he's gotten so much worse. DeMarcus Cousins, on the other hand, like he's shown and proven that he can play at a high level still. With the Rockets, before he decided to, cut ties with the team, he was averaging a double-double. Like he can still play. DeMarcus Cousins' injuries were serious injuries, but because of modern medicine, they don't pose that much of a threat to somebody's career anymore. An ACL and Achilles, yeah, it takes a year to recover from each, but then when you get back, you'll be fine. And that's been proven. I mean, KD does it. Clay's going to come back and do the same thing. DeMarcus Cousins will be fine. He's playing at a high level right now. And the coolest part about this is that he's playing with Rondo again. Rondo just got signed by the Clippers, and back in the day when they were on the Pelicans, Rondo brought out the best in DeMarcus Cousins, and I think that's going to be the same thing that happens here. The Clippers need physicality on the inside, and that's exactly what DeMarcus Cousins bring. Serge Ibaka is kind of soft, not going to lie. And Zubac is a big baby. Sorry, Eric. You need some physicality on the inside, somebody who can't be moved, somebody who's mean, and that's DeMarcus Cousins. And I think he's definitely going to finish out the season with the Clippers, and he's going to produce a high level.
Okay. I do agree with you. I think, obviously the Clippers are a title contender. I said on the podcast last week that I thought the Clippers were the favorites to come out of the West now. But to your point, we haven't really seen, he was averaging a double-double off the bench for the Rockets, but we haven't seen DeMarcus Cousins since those days with the Pelicans, which I think was also 2016. And he's a 7-footer.
But he doesn't have to be that now.
He doesn't have to, but those are both major injuries to your lower extremities that he has to deal with. I like Boogie.
He has a good sports medicine staff in the Clippers. Come on, you got Eric right there. Like you
got Eric right there.
Yeah.
I just healed him.
There we go.
I would like to see him succeed. He's been through a rough couple of years. He did technically get a championship ring last year, sort of as a part of the Lakers. And they lost the year before that.
Oh,
that was the year they lost to the Raptors. I think they'll probably both finish out the seasons on their respective teams, but Boogie will make more of an impact. And I like the Rondo pairing. I didn't even think about that. But I think what Rondo brings to the Clippers is going to be more important than what Boogie brings to the Clippers. But finishing off some Clipper talk, which means, Eric, I'm all done with basketball this week. A little shorter since there's just the four of us, but I'm all done.
Yeah. One other that was great, Alex. That was really good insight, and we had a lot of questions too that we covered there. One last random thing. Boogie Cousins, we witnessed him just rupture his quad chasing a basketball when the Clippers played the Warriors in the playoffs that year. But, that's besides the point. So he has had a big injury history. But, I think hopefully he could be okay with that. And as well as his side of off the court is what people talk about too. So hopefully that is better.